Hello, everyone. Hi. I'm just putting in the title just to pin it. Hello. 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 Hi. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm just... Hello. Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm just gonna add on Mariam. I know she's on. Hello, everyone. Hi. Hello.
Hola, hi.
Hi.
How
Hi.
are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing so well. You look lovely.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so
How
much.
is everyone doing?
Fine, I hope.
How are you doing, Miriam? I know
doing
you had a busy
amazing.
morning. I'm just gonna
Yes,
put on. Okay. Can you still hear me? I'm just putting on my
absolutely
AirPods.
perfect.
Okay.
Yes, it's perfect.
Great. How's your morning going?
Amazing, really. Just had the most interesting live session with the team at Getting Edu and two special guests, and we were reviewing like applications, which is one of my favorite things to do. So yeah, so that's how it's
great.
been going. Yeah.
How is everybody doing? You can drop in the comment section. Let us know how, in our place, we're on lockdown. So that's thanks to COVID. So if COVID has impacted you one way or the other, let us know.
Yeah.
How are you doing? So should we just give it a bit just to let people to join in? And
Sure.
Then, okay. So
And how are you?
well,
It's you're in Canada, right? So the weather is looking good today. Any plans to
yes,
go out? Well, we're
I
on
did.
lockdown in Toronto.
We're on lockdown. I just have to do, this
Yeah,
COVID, I'm done with it. It's
we're
like,
over it.
yeah, it's like going in, going out, come back in. Like I'm just tired. And now I think the cases are over 4,000
Oh boy,
now.
that's a lot.
So yeah, I
That's a
don't
lot.
know what's going to happen. I'm just like, hopefully we don't find ourselves here by next year.
I
We're
hope so.
still, yeah, so
Yeah, and hope everybody's just staying safe as well, in the meantime.
yeah, in the
Yeah,
meantime. Okay, I think we can go ahead and just start.
sure.
So I'll just do a bit of introduction about myself, and then I'll introduce you so you can also let us know what you do, your background, and all that.
Hmm.
So obviously, my name is Simi. I'm an immigration consultant and the lead consultant at Citadel Global Agency. So
Hmm.
what we do is we assist people with different visas applications, so study, work permits, humanitarian, PR application, but everything immigration you can think of. We also do help with admission as well, but limited to undergrad, postgrad diploma, and
Hmm.
maybe masters. But anything about scholarship, we do not handle that, which is why we brought the scholarship expert to come and tell us about, scholarship information and the
Hmm.
strategies for basically obtaining scholarship. And I know that you're not limited to Canada scholarships
No.
application as well. So how
Hmm.
about you just let us know what you do and everything about you?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to speak. This is like one of my favorite topics to talk about.
Yeah.
Um, so my name is Mariam Momodu. I'm a lawyer. I'm also the founder of Getting Education Consulting, and we're a social enterprise that helps Africans get into the top schools in the world with as much scholarships as possible. Now, we also help people who just want to get into school and want to fund their degree. We help them make the best career decisions for themselves, because we've seen so many people who spend a lot of money, trying to get a master's or PhD or an undergrad degree, but aren't doing it in a strategic way. money. And at the end of the day, the return on investment isn't what they expect. So where your plug goes for studying abroad, you know, whether for undergrad or for graduate programs. So my story is that I studied law at the University of Ibadan. I think I always knew from then that I wanted to get a master's abroad in one of the top schools. So I got a master's from the University of Cambridge on a fully funded Commonwealth scholarship. And after that, I worked for a little bit. And then, you know, I'm doing a PhD in law at the University of Toronto, where I'm a Vanier scholar, which is like one of the top scholarships you can get here in Canada. I've also gotten quite a couple of other scholarships as well. So I'm really passionate about helping people put their best foot forward, because education can change your life. But one thing I always say is that there's a lot of hard work, especially if you're looking for a scholarship. So if you know that you're not ready to stress yourself,
right,
you need to pay for the degree, and we can also help you get in. But if you can put in the hard work, there are scholarships out there, you know, that can help you achieve your education dreams.
oh, that's good to know. So I know that a lot of our students, they come and say, oh, can, especially maybe undergrad or postgrad diploma, and then they ask, oh, can I get a scholarship for programs like that? My stand has always been, if it's an undergrad, if you're an international student, you cannot really get a scholarship, except you, once you come in, maybe you can apply. You're a first year student, then you can, there's more opportunities open to you. So being a scholarship expert, why don't you just tell us, like, what are the programs that are available for like for scholarships?
Okay, so now for undergrad, the truth is that there are undergrad entrance scholarships, but those scholarships are usually reserved for pretty much, I would say, the best of the best undergrads. So it's usually based on academic merit. So if you, for example, have a student who is extremely gifted, right, and has, you know, aced their WAEC or their A levels, you know, there is a chance that they can apply for those scholarships. They're also in the US, we don't do this as much, some other scholarships that aren't academic based, for example, like sports scholarships and things like that. But I mean, it's the point is that you need to have that ability. So, for instance, I can't get a basketball scholarship because I couldn't have gotten a basketball undergrad scholarship because, hello, you know, it wasn't going to happen. So, for the undergrad, you have to think, what am I bringing to the school? It needs to be something special. Now, and that's why for me, I also encourage that, you know, if you're really looking for an undergrad program, you should be able to fund this abroad, except you go to like a very low tuition country. And we do help people get into like places like Ukraine and Russia, where, you know, the tuition is not as expensive as, say, coming to somewhere like the US or to Canada. So that's another option for if you want to do your undergrad program abroad, you can look at low tuition countries. But if you're looking at places like the US, the UK, Canada, even Australia, New Zealand, it's actually quite expensive for undergrads. So it's either you have high academic achievement and you're ready to take whatever standardized test that you need to take, or you have some other thing like, you know, a sports scholarship, a music scholarship, and some of those are not even fully funded. And you must be exceptional, because bear it in mind that you're competing against, you know, those who are in the US or in Canada who also want that same scholarship. You can be an athlete, maybe you run, you swim, you know, those are possibilities. But for the graduates, that's where it gets interesting, because as a graduate student, particularly if you're doing a research-based program, there are opportunities for you to get funded for that program. Why? Because as an undergrad, it's like you're taking information, but as a graduate student, you're taking, but you're also giving. So you can also work as like a teaching assistant, or you can you can work in a lab where they're pretty much paying you to do that research, and that's why it's easier to kind of get funded programs for masters and for PhD. So yeah, so those are pretty much the broad, broadly speaking. I can go into more detail and more nuance about the different types of scholarship, but let me allow you to ask me questions.
Yeah. So I know that obviously, like, especially like for undergrad or postgrad diploma, especially like for you to, if I don't even know postgrad diploma if there are really scholarships for that particular, but for undergrad, I know that you have to be really, really exceptional. And
That's true.
for you to be able to have a chance, because
Yeah.
again, like you said, you're competing against people that are domestic students
Yeah.
that have the abilities and they have the merit, they have the
Resources.
advantage, right?
Yes. Yes.
Over someone who's an international student that is
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be able to fund their education. So
Mm-hmm.
from the get-go, if you know that it's something that you want to study abroad, you have to have been planning maybe while you were in grade 9 or grade
Exactly.
8, because that's
Yes.
the only way you can show and build those credentials, those abilities that you need to show when you're applying for the scholarship.
Precisely.
um so just before we go into the next question, so you can ask your questions, but we'll not be taking questions until about the end of the session. So maybe I'm hoping to do the session for about 30 minutes and take questions for the next 10 minutes. Hopefully we can stick to that time.
Mm-hmm.
But so say maybe by 11:35 we would start rounding up and looking at the questions. So feel free to drop your questions in the comment section, and then
Mm-hmm.
we'll look at them afterwards. So speaking of the countries, I know you mentioned lower tuition. So what countries do you think, or would you suggest to people when you're looking for scholarship? These are the countries that make it easier for people to apply for scholarship and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. Like, what countries would you really suggest for people to look at if they're
Mm-hmm.
looking for scholarships?
So we're talking more of the master's level now, right?
Yes.
Master's PhD. So quite frankly, they're everywhere, and that's the brilliant part of it. Anywhere there's a university, there's a huge likelihood that you will be able to get like some programs that have funded masters or PhD. So nowadays we're seeing a lot of students, and which I quite love to see, a lot of students even going to Asia, right? You know, going to China, going to South Korea, where they're especially the science students, where the technology is amazing. So if
Right.
you know that getting a scholarship is a priority, let me bring it out to Nigeria. You cannot be doing too much yanga. You understand what I'm saying? You can't. And why do I say that? Because you have to have the end goal in mind. Have your
Right.
end goal in mind. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to land at the end of the day? If you want to land in Canada, it's very possible that because the Canadian schools are just how many, right? It's very
Yes.
possible that you might not get a place in a Canadian school.
Limited. Yes.
The US has a lot more schools. You're more likely to get a place there. If that doesn't work for you, the UK is there. But sometimes the UK, they would ask you to pay for your PhD, which I think you should do, because a PhD is already stressful on its own. So I don't think you should pay for a PhD. I think you should be paid to do a PhD. And then you have other European countries, Italy, Germany. These are all places
Australia.
where,
Yep.
which is the places where you can go and conduct your research. So I think a lot of times we're very narrow-minded. If it's
I
not
like
Harvard,
that.
if it's not Harvard, if it's not Oxford, if it's not Cambridge, and I'm not saying we shouldn't go aspire to go to those places. I mean, I went to Cambridge, so I'm not an EP, I'm not an enemy of progress. I'm not going to say that you shouldn't go there. You must apply, but also bear it in mind that it's just a practical fact that schools will have limited spaces. So you need to decide whether, you know what, I'm going to try for 5 years. If that's how long it takes me to get into, this school with funding, I'm going to do that. But also bear it in mind that every year you wait. I always think about this thing. And that's why for me, I went for my master's almost immediately. The beautiful ones are not yet born. Every year you wait, somebody is coming with a better grade, with better experience, and is going to apply. So I feel like the moment you feel you're ready, don't postpone, just apply, right? Because every year the pool keeps getting wider, and it's more difficult for them to select you. Yeah.
I love everything you just said. I
Thank you.
love that, because I find that a lot of people that I know that sometimes the end goal is Canada. I know that because Canada does offer opportunities for people to, relocate to that permanent residency. And that's what people are striving for. But you have to understand that, look at other ways. Is there other ways that I can get this education, especially if you're looking at express entry, for example, right? And you don't have the education to meet up. Some people, while you get additional points when you come to Canada for studying in Canada. It's not, you don't necessarily have to do that education. Go somewhere else where you can get the education to then increase your score for express entry. And in fact, while you're doing that, you can even get experience.
Yeah.
UK, for example, now offers postgraduate work permits.
Yes.
After you study there. So once
Yes.
you do that, get that work experience. Age is still on your time. And even that you can complement, even if age is not on your time, or
Yeah.
is not working for you, you can add that with your education. The higher your education, the more points you will definitely get. So you can use that to supplement the age.
Yes.
So when you do that, you're still working towards the end goal. So don't just be limited to
Yes.
just Canada, because like you said, Canada is very limited in terms of their education, their institutions. So
Yes.
it's limited. It's very limited. There's so many other opportunities.
Yes.
US, Germany, for example, the tuition cost is very low.
Yes.
It's
Even
very
free.
low. Yeah, it's even free. Exactly.
Yeah.
So there are definitely other opportunities
Mm-hmm.
out there that you have to strive for. And speaking of opportunities, and let's talk about like the scholarship now. I know that when people, sometimes it's difficult when people get rejected because of when they're doing their applications. How does that, is it necessarily that the person is not good enough? I just want you to touch base. I know you had maybe mentioned about that, but I just wanted to touch base. Does it mean that the person maybe did not have the grades, or like how does usually the rejection work?
Okay, so rejections happen for a variety of reasons, and it's interesting that you raised this because that's just the session that I had, just talking about rejection, how to bounce back. And if you missed that, we're going to post it up so you can actually watch and see some essays that we discuss and things that could have been done better. But the thing is, rejections, sometimes it's not even your fault. It could be, especially for PhD programs, it could just be that the professor is on sabbatical that year, right? The professor you want. And you wouldn't know except you have inside information. But it could be that the person just has, they like your application, but they've promised somebody else that they're going to take them on as PhD students. Maybe someone they met at a conference and they haven't met you. It could be something as small as that, you know? So there's that. And sometimes it's your fault too. Right? Maybe the kind of application you've submitted, you just submitted an average application. You need to understand that scholarship applications are competitive. This is a competition. I was just saying at the last session that I had that just imagine that you are a startup. You as a human being, you're a startup. And what you're doing is you're trying to ask, you know, investors to invest in your startup. So your scholarship application is like your pitch deck. And you are going and you're saying, look, this is what we've done in the past. These are the percentage, you know, profits. This is what we've done. This is what I've done. And this is what I will do, right? It's a competition. There are other startups there that they're going to have to select. So you have to show why you are the best bet for that money. Why them investing in you will have a higher return on investment than any other person. You have to show that you are the fertile ground that will yield 100. You cannot show that you will yield some, you yield 30, and that goes to the strength and the quality
the
of
kind of application. Right.
The other mistake that people make is that you apply for scholarships and you apply for one type of scholarship. So you apply, you say, oh, I've applied for scholarships, but you've only applied for Chevening. I've applied for scholarships, but you've only applied for Commonwealth. Okay, but the Commonwealth, the Chevening, maybe they pick 30 people per country per year, and you have over 10,000 people applying. Have you really applied for a scholarship? You know, yes, you should apply because you can be one of the, you know, the lucky 30. And I always say that no matter how competitive the scholarship is, I will apply. You understand? I will put in my application because it might just be my turn, right? But that's not the only type of scholarship you can apply for. And this is something that we talk about extensively in our graduate school bootcamp. There are different types of scholarships. So you apply for scholarships from governments. You know, like the UK government has this scholarship, the Canadian government has that scholarship. You apply the Netherlands, government of Netherlands or Germany, they have so and so scholarships, but those are competitive and they are few. You also need to apply for scholarships within your school, the school that you're going to, right? Now, they would have some scholarships for Africans, scholarship for this, scholarship for that. Find out and apply. You need to now apply for scholarships within your department. You need to find out, are there fellowships, are there scholarships, where is the money in this place? Can I apply? You know, when I resumed at U of T, in fact, I was a bit shy about asking about money, you know? So they're giving us a funding package, but it was only after I came here that I found out that one of my colleagues had asked Is there more money? You know, can I get more money? And I had asked as well, but I didn't really take it very, I didn't take it very seriously like that. I was like, well, this one that I've gotten, I'm okay. You know, I found out that she ended up getting nominated by the department for a university scholarship, which she got, right? So, but she was very, very adamant about, you know, I might need more, I might need more, I might need more. Me, I was just like, you know what, I'm cool. So you need to open your mouth. Closed mouths don't get fed. But there's also a way to ask. You don't just go around and say, I want scholarship. You need to show your value. What am I bringing to the table? Why me over anyone else? You know, other things you need to think about are the organizations that are independent of schools that also give scholarships. You need to look out for them. Those scholarships may not be so big, like it may not be like 50,000, it may not be 100,000 or whatever. But a 2,000 here, 3,000 here, 5,000 here, it goes a long way. You know, so I mean, I talk about this in more detail in the boot camp, but it's pretty much about, I call it a scholarship funnel. So there's some scholarships that everybody will apply. You know, your chances of getting it are lower, but there's some scholarships that as it's fewer people are applying, so you have a better chance of getting those scholarships.
So basically, from what I understand now, it's like if you're looking to get scholarship, you cannot just, first, number one, you can't put in a shabby application and think that you're going to get selected. Number two, you have to, it's almost like you have to have that excellence spirit. You have to be willing to give it what it takes. You can't just apply, get it, and they just stay that way. You have to consistently be doing the work and be showing the value why you need the scholarship. It's not for people who just feel like, you know what, I'm just going to do masters or get scholarship and hope that
it doesn't come to meet people in their houses.
You have to get out there. And you said something about network. How important is network? I'll put that in two different ways. How important is network when you're applying for scholarship? Number one. Number two, when you're applying for scholarship, is it important for you to reach out to the institution, department head, and whatnot? How important are those things?
Amazing. I think it depends on the type of scholarship you're applying for. So there are some programs that will tell you that. So if it's a research-based program, some will say you need to get a supervisor before you you're kind of like accepted and given a scholarship. Some would say don't contact anybody in the department, just submit, right? So it really depends on your school. So for my PhD, U of T says don't contact the supervisors. So I didn't contact my potential supervisors. I just selected the people that I want, and I never contacted them until they accepted me and we spoke. And that was almost obviously an easier route, but a lot of times you have to reach out to supervisors. Now I know of somebody, and that's why I'm like, a lot of times I get my DMs and I get messages, and you can tell the people who are ready for it. You can tell the people who are ready to work, and you can tell the people who think, yeah, it's a nice idea to get a scholarship, but are you ready to put in the work? If you are not ready to put in the work, you must be ready to have the money. It is one
or the other.
It is either or, right? It is either or. So so you, in terms of networking, I want you to think of networking in a broader sense. So don't just think about it as only you reaching out to that supervisor when you need them to be your supervisors or whatever. You can follow them online, like their comments. You are already showing yourself on the radar a little bit if they are active online. You know, these are secrets that I teach my students in the boot camp. You know, start liking their comments. Don't spam them though, but just, you know, like their comments here, retweet them, say something when they talk on Twitter. A lot of academics are on Twitter. Like what they're doing
on LinkedIn,
like what they're doing on LinkedIn. Before, you know, even if you don't send them an email for like 6 months, they know that you've been following them. You know, just imagine somebody who, there's no way, if people interact consistently with my content, I begin to note their names, right? And make sure that your name is your actual name online, you know. So, and then eventually you can reach out to them. So this thing is a game of strategy. You can't just do things normally and expect that the doors will open for you. you have to be very strategic about how you move. So networking is not just about connecting and talking to people. It's also about connecting or talking to the professors. It's also about connecting with other people who are studying in that school, other people who are studying under that professor. It's also about making a positive impression. Can you see me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, so my screen is just going dim and I wonder why. So it's networking all round. Sometimes you can even impress somebody who is working with the professor and they tell the professor about you. I know that happens a lot for jobs, particularly in Canada, right? So think about networking in a more holistic sense. Don't hound professors. When you're sending them emails, my goodness, make sure that email is one that is so well constructed that it cannot be ignored. Make sure you don't just write something like, I'm interested in your research because it aligns with my research. What does that even mean?
What's that?
What research? What research are they doing? How does it align with yours? What are you really interested in them? I have a friend who applied to a particular
school. Sorry about that.
No problem. I have a friend who applied to a particular school here in Canada. It was a funded master's program and it was for law, and she was placed. So I asked her, I said, how far with your application? And she said, I was placed on the waiting list and told that I was told that this professor needs to review my application to know if they would select me. I said, okay, good stuff. So now what have you done about that? And she was like, nothing, I'm waiting. I said, you are waiting. You're waiting. They've told you the name of the professor who is going to review your work and you are waiting. I said, I give you a week. Do research. I got the papers this guy has written. Do research about this guy. Compose an email. In fact, she first of all composed an email. I said, send an email to the guy. She sent it to me. I said, lie, but this is not what we're going to send. So I sent out, some articles to her. I gave her time. And this is someone who wanted it. This is one of the most driven young women that I know on this earth. And what she has achieved in this Canada, I can't even use my mouth to say it. She has done so well. So we went. She took the tips that I gave her, and now we wrote the essay. I sat down and the email. I sat down, rearranged it, and we sent it out to the professor. He didn't acknowledge it, but the next day our admission came through, funded. He didn't acknowledge, but he read it. And what was in that email? That email was very detailed. It showed that this girl had read his papers, understood how it could help her. You get what I'm saying? Understood how she could help him understand certain things. Understood also how a research could be used on a broader level. And that email was a winner. So I just want to encourage you guys. It's not an easy road, but we've talked about a few things. One, diversify your options. I was also going to say that when I was applying for my master's, I looked at University of Toronto and I didn't apply. Why? Because for the master's program, they make it very clear that there are almost no fully funded master's programs for the University of Toronto. Excuse me, why will I apply when I knew I needed money to come? So if a school says that there's no money, believe it, right? I know for the Yale Masters of Law, they put it online, very obvious, is it? There is no funding for this program. Why are you applying? And you're now you'd have the admission, no scholarship, except you can pay, right? So please and please and please, be strategic. I always loved Canada, right? But I didn't come here for my master's. I went to the UK, and now I'm here for my PhD because there was money, right? So I came for the PhD because it was funded. We have to be very realistic, especially for people who are coming from developing countries. It's a lot of money to pay for this tuition. Yes, so these scholarships are very important, right? So you have to make sure that you put your best foot forward.
That's good. So one more question that I wanted to ask is that when we're putting this scholarship application together, what are the key things, important things that people need to be wary of for you to be able to say that, yes, my application is good?
Okay, so
the do's, let's talk about the do's and the don'ts.
Okay, so definitely make sure your document is well formatted and it looks good. People underestimate it. Like your CV needs to actually look physically good, because it's like when you eat with your eyes before you eat with your mouth. So before I read your document, I'm kind of looking if it's all over the place. If not, I know you're not a person who pays attention to detail. A lot of us don't. Even I as a lawyer, I now have a very I have a high skill in terms of making documents look good, but it's something a lot of people don't pay attention to, and we need to. So no typos, no errors, none of those. Also let the document look good. The second thing you're going to do is do show that you are a good return on investment. And you do that not by begging or appealing to emotions. You do that by bringing your receipts. What have I done in the past? Because your past is the biggest indicator of your future success, right? Your past success, if you say, if only I had gotten this, I would have been able to do this in life. But people with less have been able to do more, than you have done. So your past successes are a single is a very huge indicator of what you will achieve in the future. The third thing I would say is do brag on yourself. Don't do some humble brag. Do some proper brag. Bring out the things that you've done. Don't just list things that you've done without showing the impact, right? Show the impact. Be proud of it. Don't be say I was lucky to get. We have a resource, and we're going to find ways of sharing this more often. It's called phrases you should never put in your application. Don't say I was lucky to have received. You weren't lucky. You worked hard.
You worked hard for it.
Show that you worked hard. Own that. So a lot of times, I think we come from a culture that is very modest, that says be humble, and I'm still learning it. But you've got to be proud of what you've done. So those are a few things that you should definitely do. Don't have a generic essay that is not customized to that school. So even if your story remains the same, make sure that the part where you talk about why that institution is a good fit for you, make sure that you are very, very, very clear. So I do international trade law, and one of the reasons why I picked Canada, I said, look, Canada is like literally neighbors with one of the biggest trading partners with the US. I mean, and Canada does prioritize trade and trades a lot with a lot of countries, so I felt like this was a good place to and I just try to, even though my research is about Africa, I just try to kind of put it together. So don't just let it be generic. Like the essay you send to school A is the one you send to school B, school D, school E, and the reason for that school is the same thing. Don't do that. The other thing you shouldn't do is don't just beg, for money. Like, I can't afford it. I can't afford this. Well, everybody that is applying for that scholarship cannot afford it. Yeah.
But so you need to we sponsor you.
Exactly. Why you? So don't just do that. Another thing is, let me see, what are the don'ts? Don't start your essays. Don't let your essays be impersonal. Don't let it be academic. Don't let it be impersonal. Let it actually tell your story. Let's actually let them see a glimpse into who you are. So one of the easiest ways to not do that is don't start your essay with a quote. According to Barack Obama, this opportunity meets those who are prepared. You can slot one or two things here and there, but I feel like starting it that way just makes you seem very generic. So yes, you can come on somewhere later on, you can do that, but not to start or say to fail to prepare is to prepare to fail. Don't start your essay like that. All right, don't do that. Yeah.
Leave the quotes for later on.
Yeah, if at all. Yes, later on. Yeah.
Okay, that's definitely good. You mentioned something about resumes, right? And I just to chop up, I think maybe this might be the last, or we'll have one more questions after this.
No problem.
So about your resumes, how important, first of all, do you need to have like past experience, like work experience in the field that you want to do research in, to be able to have a better chance at applying for scholarship? And in your resume, what are the important things that you need to show when you're putting together your resume? I know your resume is definitely a key thing when you're applying for scholarship. But what are the things? So how can you make sure that your resume really tells a story about you, your experience, your qualifications, and does your experience really matter in terms of scholarship?
Okay, so I hear two questions: the role of your resume and whether experience really matters. But I'm going to pack those to the side first and talk about something that I call the one document strategy. And what does that mean? It means that when you're submitting your application, your resume, your CV, your transcripts, everything, your references, look at it as if it's one document that is telling one story, right? Now, a lot of times, admissions committees don't even know what to do with your document because you've confused them. Your story not getting it. You know,
I understand.
if you understand what I'm saying. So if maybe you've had a switch in your career, in
Mm.
your resume, it might make sense to kind of talk a little bit
Talk
about it in
about.
your essay so that we can understand your motivation. So you were doing chemistry, then you ended up doing law. What happened? You understand?
Mm-hmm.
That's a solid
When the
story.
switch. Yep.
It's a solid story. So your resume, so now going back to your question, I just didn't want to forget that. Your
Mm-hmm.
resume experience is it depends. It depends. Honestly, I had just like a year experience before I went for my master's. And then I'd worked for a total of like 3 to 4 years before I started my PhD. But to be quite fair, I did have some experience or interest, demonstrated interest in what I ended up doing my research in. So it's not so much about the experience, it's about how you can demonstrate your interest in that field. And yes, if you're actually interested in something, somehow your experience should show it. So one of the
Yeah.
tips that I give is that sometimes, as we're talking now, you may actually not be applying to school now. What you might be doing over the next 1 year is to build up the profile of someone who should be able to get into a certain type of program. So if you say that you have no research experience, you care about nanotechnology, you've never done anything on nanotechnology, start taking courses on it, start attending conferences on it. Everything is virtual now, everything is online. This is like the biggest
Mm-hmm.
access to equitable access to things in years. So take advantage of that, you know. Join organizations, volunteer. So even if you don't have like serious academic experience in it, if other things that you have done shows that you have an interest in this field, you are likely to be considered. So it doesn't matter if you worked for 10 years in a bank, if at the end of the day you want to go and do something in fisheries, like it doesn't make sense. So your experience, and it's better for you to have instead just done, just started a farm, or just volunteered with some fisheries organizations, or done
Mm-hmm.
1, 2 things, presented at a conference on sustainable fisheries, or have a paper on that, or a few blog posts on that, and you've done that for 2 years, you have a better chance than someone whose experience is not even relevant to what they're trying
Right.
to do. Yeah.
Okay, great. One more question. So,
Sure.
I'm sorry, guys, if you see me keep looking like this, is because I have a list of questions here
No
and I
problem.
just don't want to miss out on key things. And one other question that I think is important, I don't think we can go through all these questions, but one thing is your average GPA, average student.
Yeah.
Can an average student, well, what chances does an average student have in obtaining a scholarship?
Okay. So very good question. Now, again, scholarships are competitive. I'm going to be honest with you. There's some scholarships that they're just going to be, they would look at your essays, and a lot of good people will apply.
Mm.
When they want to do a short list, they will just use the grades, because everybody there is good, and then they just default to. So how do we pick? We use
Mm-hmm.
grades. You understand what I'm saying? So grades do have a place to play, and if you're still in a position where you can improve your grades, I always say do it. You will never lose by having good grades, ever. Not in this life,
Mm.
not in the next.
Mm.
Nonetheless, that's not the end. If you don't have good grades, there are other ways you can demonstrate that you are worthy, and sometimes you can even talk about it in your essay, right?
Right.
You talk about it in your
Explain
essay.
why.
Yeah, explain why, and show what has changed, show what is different, show what you've done. So bad grades are not the end of. In fact, to be honest, the number of years you leave school, the more irrelevant your grades are,
Grades are,
right?
yes.
Especially when they're bad. Maybe when they're good, you can still ride on it. But imagine if 10 years after now, or
Mm.
after I finish from uni, all I'm saying is I finished with the first class. Nobody's going to take me seriously, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh yeah, congrats, finished with the first class. But what have you done in the past 10 years, right? So grades actually you diminish the longer you're out of school, right? So don't be too worried about your grades. Instead, think about the other ways you can be competitive. And if there are places you can explain, your grades and there are always places you can explain some things in your essays or in your supplemental essays, but there's also a technique of doing that. You don't do it in a way to put yourself down. You still do
Mm.
it in a way that last you're selling yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
grades have a role to play, especially for those very competitive government sponsored scholarships. But when you're doing more research based programs, I think it's more or less what you can bring to the table than your grades.
So in your experience, what is the average or lowest grade you've seen for people who actually applied for a scholarship and got it?
I know people who have a second class lower and they've gotten some scholarships. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know. So, I think we're gonna just round it up here.
Okay.
I'm just trying to look at make sure that at least the important questions we've been able to answer them.
Hmm.
So if you have any question, this is the opportunity for you to drop them in the
Yeah.
comment section. I'll be happy to take a few more questions, maybe like two, three more questions. And if you do, I know you, if following up from this video, if you feel like you have a question, how can they reach you, Miriam?
So you can, my handle is, as you can see, it's Mariam Momodu underscore, but because I'm a little bit of a, not a technophobe, but I still try on Instagram compared to Twitter. But on Twitter, I'm Mariam Momodu underscore. I'm here also at Mariam Momodu underscore. But you can actually reach out to at Getting Edu. That's Getting Edu. On Instagram, on Twitter, just send a DM, or you can go to the link in our bio and fill our inquiries form, and someone will definitely reach out to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but if you want to hear faster, message Getting Edu, because my DMs get a little bit crazy. So yeah.
Right. Okay, so we have a question from Chimela.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Does having a good GRE result or IELTS results give one more advantage when applying for a scholarship PhD in Canada? Or is this tied down, good grades, experience, and voluntary?
I think, as again, your whole application is one package. So if you have a great GRE score, that's to your advantage. IELTS, personally, I don't think so much, honestly. But having a good GRE score is also it's to your advantage. But at the same time, I think people always are afraid of applying if the GRE score isn't that great. What they don't realize is that the admissions committee, they're human beings too, right? And they know that these standardized tests are not even the best tests of intelligence. So don't worry if your grades aren't the best. Just put in an application anyway. I mean the GRE scores. Put in an application anyway, because you never know. You lose all the chances you don't take. So it's like a gamble. Some you win, some you lose some, but you have to try all. Yeah.
Okay. Another person from Yin Dot says, can one get a scholarship after admission and lectures have commenced?
Well, I don't think so.
So basically, I mean, there's a deadline for you to apply,
Exactly.
right? And that's usually
Exactly.
before the start of your program.
Exactly.
So
Way before. Yes.
right. So if you miss that, I don't think you can, except you're looking for the next year. But
Yes.
isn't there a timeline, a time when even the scholarship opens?
So it depends on the scholarship, right? So different scholarships, different timelines. But you can also think about, um, you know, the fact that if you start a program, you can get, if it's a 2-year program, you may be able to get some scholarships for the second year. But also, I need you to bear in mind that in some cases, some scholarships would actually close even before the admissions cycle closes. So if they say submit your applications by January 30, the scholarship might have closed in December. So that's why I said those who are going to be congratulated next year, they've already started doing the work. They started noting down the dates, the deadlines, and so on and so
Wow.
forth. Yeah.
Wow, that's definitely so. Wow, I didn't even know that. So even when they tell you that the deadline is at so time,
Sometimes some scholarships will close earlier than the admissions deadlines. Yeah.
and like you said, it's a matter of like there's a lot of people applying for that scholarship. So the
Yes.
earlier the better for you. That's
Absolutely.
you should definitely apply.
Yeah.
So one person says, as a graduate, do you advise going for youth service before applying for scholarship?
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing that person is Nigerian, so
Yes. So if you're a Nigerian and you have we have this compulsory 1 year service to the government, personally, I say do it before you travel, because it's just kind of nice to know that you've wrapped it up. It feels like if you travel for a program, what if you get a job? It might be hard for you to have a very good paying job somewhere in Canada or in the UK and you go back to NYSC camp. It's better to at least finish all the hustle or certain type of hustle at the same time. But that's just my recommendation. Some people do it the other way around. I personally did my NYSC. I also think if you're looking for scholarships from, like, say, the Nigerian government, having their NYSC done is an advantage. So I would advise that you do it, but it really depends on you.
Okay, one more question, and then if you, I know you also book consultations, right? For people who have questions about applications.
Funny thing, we just do the boot camp for the most part. So
Okay.
our boot camp it's I don't even know how to describe it because it's so amazing. It's like it's a program where it's a self-paced course where you basically learn
Okay.
how to package a proper application that cannot be ignored. That's how we say it. So we talk about scholarships, we talk about how to search for the right schools, the factors you should be looking at. You know, we give you lots of resources, and we're also introducing a 3-month accountability program to make sure that you actually get it done.
Right.
So yeah, and so through the boot camp, that's like a group coaching. That's
Right.
how we support people. But we also have other services, like we have what we call a final application review, which means after you've finished your essays and you've written everything, you're like, you know what, I've done my best. Let the experts come and take a look at it and, you know, and fix it for me. So we do that on a per school basis. So you can, if you like, send 3 applications. If you want, just send 1, you know, depending on you would, each final application review is for 1 school. So you can choose as many as you want to do and pay accordingly. And then we also have a research service. So if you know that, oh, man, I just need to figure out which school I want to go to, we have a research service that we do. But quite honestly, if you know that you want to get scholarships as well, you need to start getting acquainted to the act of researching.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so the last question is, I'm currently doing my master's, but I want to apply for a scholarship for another master's because I want to have a broader knowledge in finance. Will this pass for me, or I have to go for PhD?
Quite interestingly, I know someone who did a master's with me at Cambridge and went on and got another master's funded from King's College. So I think there is no hard and fast rule. There's some scholarships that will tell you that if you already have a master's, you cannot get the scholarship, right? It's for if you don't have a degree. So you need to really look at, so maybe if you've done a course-based master's and now you want to do a research-based master's, perhaps. But I think you really need to look at what that says about your profile, you know, and your field. Can you get that experience by working or by volunteering instead of going for another master's, you know, or maybe going into a PhD and then combining your interests. But I mean, a lot of people have double masters. It's not something I would do or recommend. I think you should go higher or get work experience. But that's my personal preference.
And I think just to chip into that on a final note, I am Renegade. I think we had answered your question earlier on, so you can look into the video once we post it on our YouTube and on our IG Live. So just to buttress what you had just mentioned, I think also in terms of visa application, that's just what I just want to put in there. When you apply for visa, the immigration wants to see progression, right?
Yes.
So you're doing masters and masters, you need to be able to explain why. If you're going into a different field, explain why this new masters will benefit you, right?
Yeah.
So you just don't want to keep doing masters and masters just so that you can get into a country. That might be a red flag for you when you're putting in your visa application. Having said that, it's not to say that if you have masters and you're going for another master's degree, you cannot still apply for your visa, right? It's just to say that you need to be able to show progression. Why is this in your career path? Why is this master's program important? What is it going to do? Do you have a company that you hope that this might benefit, which is why you're taking this master's program? So it's all a matter of packaging and being able to explain this new pathway.
Yeah.
So on that note, we are going to call it a wrap.
Thank you
so much, Mariam. This has been such an informative session.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. So, like Mariam said, if you do want to contact her, the best way is to use Getting Edo profile, and you can also handle is also on here on our Instagram page. You can also use that to get in contact with her. If you want us to assist you with your visa applications, you can always send us an email at info@citadelglobalagency.com or at citadelglobalagency@gmail.com. You can also, we do also put in I have a series of live sessions that we hold, monthly, bi-monthly, depending on who we have. But we always post that on our Instagram page and our YouTube video. So feel free to subscribe. Feel free to follow us. Send us an email. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer that. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this session. Thank you so much, Mariam. This has been really great. I hope everyone has a good day and a good weekend. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.